In this episode of Highlight Sundays, PSAs, patents, Simcity, and a Pebble. Hello and welcome back to Highlight Sundays. It is the 11th week of 2013 and here are your highlights. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for putting up with me last week. There was no videos at very short notice, so I apologize. But well, this week we are back on schedule. Everything is going to come out as per normal. So without further ado, let us jump right into our PSA. Our first item comes from the Unknown Worlds blog. Now, Unknown Worlds are the guys known for creating Natural Selection and Natural Selection 2. The title of this blog post is very simply, Beware Discount Steam Keys. Now, for those of you who are not aware what Steam actually is, here's a very quick overview. The idea of Steam is very simple. It is essentially just a platform that has a whole bunch of games. You can actually visit a store and buy whatever games that you are interested in. And you'll be able to download a digital copy of the game and basically play straight away. So basically what happened in this case is that this site came up and what they did is they offered Steam keys at essentially a lower price than it's worth. I should really do my homework on this, but say for example Natural Selection is a $30 game. What this site could say is if you use this Steam key and you buy it from us, you can get this game for $15. Now what happened in this case is that the site owner who bought the keys from Steam, he actually used a Visa card that has a chargeback placed on it. And essentially what this does is it blocks transfer of funds. Very simply speaking, essentially he bought a whole bunch of Steam keys without actually paying for it. And what he's done with these Steam keys is he's distributed them to the public and charged the public to get these keys. So essentially he's profiteering from nothing. And what was actually mentioned in this blog post is that Steam has actually disabled those keys because of course they were not actually paid for. Except from the customer's perspective, they were paid for. And that's the problem. The blog post actually recommends users request for a refund from the site owner. Probably not gonna happen. So well, there's something we can learn from this. If you are going to go to a site for some kind of a discount, remember to scrutinize the site, make sure it's legitimate. And in this particular context, if you are actually trying to do something involving Steam, essentially the only official source is Steam itself. Our next article comes from the New York Times and it's entitled Scientists Uncover Invisible Motion in Video. So here's the deal. When you capture video with your camera, there are things you can see, but some minute nuances are actually captured despite the fact that you don't actually see them. In this little piece done by MIT, what they've done is they've actually written some sort of an algorithm, and what it does is it basically looks at a video file. It tries to figure out what kind of repetitive motions there are within the video, and then it emphasizes this effect. Two of the most prominent examples shown, and yes, there is a video in the link provided, include one of them is the breathing of a baby. They took a video of a baby in a cot, apparently motionless, but when you run it through this program, the breathing of the baby is actually magnified, and yes, you can see the baby breathing. This isn't just done with motion, they can actually do this with color as well. Because this is very subtle, but when your heart pumps, your face actually sort of flushes a little, just a very minute amount, because of course all the blood rushes to your face. What this program can do is it can actually magnify this effect, and so just by looking at a video of a person's face, you can actually find out what their heart rate is. Very, very interesting technology. There are applications pretty much everywhere. So yeah, feel free to check out the link in the video description. I'm going to actually put up two links for this. The first is the New York Times link, which basically has a little bit of a write-up, and it also has a video. And if you'd like to find out more, I'm going to put up another link. It's a YouTube link. It's a longer video with explanation. So yeah, very interesting. Feel free to check it out. Apple patent would have devices sensor squeeze through metal, says this article from Engadget. Now, as you know, we've talked about patents before. When people find out that patents have been filed, it isn't necessarily, indicative of anything that's going to happen. And in fact, this particular patent we're looking at today was actually filed in 2009. It's been 4 years since the filing of this patent, and we haven't seen anything of this sort yet, which is unfortunate because it sounds really interesting. Anyway, this is another form of input that, Apple is apparently considering. Apparently sensors are hidden right under the chassis of the product mentioned, and when you actually squeeze the device, these sensors will pick up the squeeze. Pretty interesting, I guess, for stuff like the iPhone. There's a lot of gesture-based controls, so a squeeze could have been one of them. However, it is not clear whether this actually has been implemented into any products today. In fact, I'm pretty sure they haven't, because, well, we would have seen it by now if they have. Well, it's still interesting to think about what could have been done with this. Simcity, a living and breathing example of why DRM doesn't really work. For those of you who aren't aware, Simcity 2013 has this always online DRM. DRM stands for Digital Rights Management, and the implementation of this in SimCity is meant to reduce or discourage piracy. The way they do that is essentially you need to be online to play the game. If you do not have an internet connection, the game will just refuse to play. Now the thing is, when the game first launched, a lot of users weren't even able to log in for the very simple reason that the online servers were full. And what this essentially means is you basically have the entire game on your desktop that you intend to play single player, but because the online facilities which are just used to authenticate yourself is bottlenecked, you are essentially unable to play. That is extremely unfair. Now, SimCity has this offline buffer of 20 minutes, so you can go offline for a short period of time, but after about 20 minutes you get kicked. When Electronic Arts, or EA, the guys behind SimCity, were asked about this, their doing so is not to implement DRM, in the sense that the reason why they want users to be continuously connected is the fact that a lot of the calculations done by the game is actually done online. Unfortunately, this has been proven false. This turns out to be a white lie. According to this Reddit post, apparently someone managed to crack the game, kinda, and essentially allow indefinite use of the offline mode. For those of you who are interested, feel free to check out the Reddit link which I've posted in the video description. It does go into some amount of technical detail as to how this was done and what was some of their findings. So the really sad thing about this is that, as you know, SimCity games are actually pretty good games. In particular, if you've watched playthroughs of SimCity 2013, you will realize that essentially it is a very well thought out game. It gives the user a large level of control over a lot of things. But unfortunately, just with DRM gone wrong, the entire gaming experience is ruined. This is just one of the examples why DRM isn't the best way forward, especially in the case of SimCity, which is essentially a fully single player game. It really makes things worse, and that's why this hack came about to sort of break it. I'm not sure if you're actually able to download this and use this. I believe you can if you look through the Reddit link. So if you have a copy of the game and if you're struggling, you might want to pursue this further. Our last article for the day comes from Engadget and is entitled iFixit rips Pebble apart. For those of you who don't know, iFixit is a company that essentially picks up new stuff and just tears it apart. They've done this with mobile phones, they've done this with handheld gaming consoles, so yeah, they kinda like ripping things apart. The Pebble is a recently kickstarted smartwatch. It has an electronic paper display and essentially functions like a companion to your phone. So yeah, they've ripped it apart. If you actually want to see a picture of all the parts basically separated from each other, head on to the video description and check out the Engadget link. It's also unfortunate that apparently in order to do this, you have to break the screen somehow. You can actually see the crack on the little display. As the article mentions, there really isn't very much inside that watch. Apparently there was some confusion regarding, the Bluetooth module and what its functions are. But as of the day of filming, this has been cleared up by Pebble. So yeah, that's what's inside that interesting little bit of kit. Now, the reason why iFixit does these teardowns is the fact that it wants to see if, it is actually user fixable. In this case, of course, you can quite easily conclude that it isn't. There aren't any parts that you can actually tinker around with, and in fact, even attempting to take apart a watch will probably break it further. And that's the conclusion of that article. Alright, that's all there is for this episode of Highlight Sundays. If you have any comments, queries, or suggestions, or if you have anything to share for the next episode of Highlight Sundays, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. Don't forget to check out the official Twitter for this channel at twitter.com/0612tv. As always, I appreciate every like, favorite, and subscription you give me. Until next time, you're watching 0612TV.